Welcome on board. My name is Ganji and I am your instructor for grammar in this class. Our focus will be on adverbs and under adverbs. We are looking at kinds of adverbs. This being a continuation of a previous class, but the focus of this class is on adverbs of manner. Though that is the focus, we need to begin our understanding of kinds of adverb by looking at what an adverb is, and then we shall focus more on adverbs of manner, how to identify them in given sentences, and how to use them in your construction day to day, or how to build constructive sentences in English using the adverbs of manner. That would come after looking at what an adverb is. Now, it is true that even other languages too borrow the same concept of adverbs. English inclusive. Now, in English, that is the focus of this class. We need to know what an adverb is in English language and how to use it, or looking at the adverb of manner as a subsection of this subtopic. Now, an adverb is a word belonging to one of the major forms of the language. It typically serves as a modifier. It typically serves as a modifier or a word that limits or restricts the meaning of a verb, which means it modifies a verb. In addition to modifying a verb, an adverb can also modify an adjective in a given sentence. It does not only modify an adjective in a given sentence, it goes on to modify another adverb. It can modify another adverb in a given sentence, or it can as well modify a preposition, a phrase, a clause, or an entire sentence. In its modification of the verb, the phrase, the clause, another adverb, an adjective, or the entire sentence, it expresses some relation of manner. It also expresses some relations of quantity, of place, of time, of degree, number, cause, of position, and affirmation or denial in the given sentence. That is what an adverb generally is, a word that is used to modify a verb, to modify an adjective, to modify another adverb, a word that is also used to modify a phrase, a clause, or an entire sentence. Such is termed as an adverb. In its modification, it in one way or the other expresses some relation to manner, to time, to place, to degree, to number, to cause, or position, affirmation, or denial. Or if we don't want the lengthy illustration of what an adverb is, one can say it's a word that usually modifies or it limits or restricts the meaning of a verb. They may also modify an adjective, other adverbs, a phrase, or an entire sentence. Now, where we pause on adverb is something important, but even more important is the understanding of adverbs of manner. So dive with me into this class. Adverbs of manner are employed in sentences to provide the reader or listener with more information about the action being done by the subject in the sentence. It is used to provide more information to the reader or the listener about what is being done by the subject in a sentence. It is usually identified by asking the question, how? How was it done? If some action occurs, something happens, you ask the question, how, what, or how did that action occur? In that case, you're asking for the manner of the occurrence. How did it occur? In this case, your focus is on a process, possibly. So if you would want more information provided to the reader or the listener on how some action was done by the subject, then you would dive with me into the understanding of what adverbs of manner are or what they do in a given sentence. Now, the Macmillan Dictionary defines an adverb of manner as an adverb that shows how someone does something or how something happens. How someone does something or how something happens. For example, in the sentence, drive carefully, or he talks too fast. The moon shone brightly, and then I accidentally deleted the file. The word carefully in the first sentence, or the word fast in the second sentence, and in addition to that, the word brightly in the third sentence, and the last sentence, the word accidentally, are all manner adverbs. They tell us how something happens or how something is done. In the second one, in the first one, you encourage to drive. How should you drive? Carefully. How does he talk? Too fast. And then how does the moon shine? Brightly. Or how did you delete the file? Accidentally. So the word manner, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, is defined as the way in which something is done. The way in which something is done, as defined by the Cambridge Dictionary, is said to be manner. So an adverb of manner can be said to be one which depicts the way in which an action is done. That is what an adverb of manner is. It tells us the way in which an action is done, or how something is done. That gives our understanding. So if you're going to understand adverbs of manner, then you just ask yourself the simple question: how does something happen, or how is something done? In so answering, you get the manner or the adverbs of manner. Take a look at the given examples and then learn how you can use adverbs of manner effectively. We would give example sentences, and from them you will learn how to use adverbs of manner effectively. But the most important question that you should keep at the back of your mind every time you look at adverbs of manner is: how is something done? Or how does something occur? How does something happen? If you keep this question, your focus therein is on the adverbs of manner. Given a sentence, for example, when one says, Zikoi deeply regretted the damage caused by her son. The word Zikoi is our subject. What follows it is, because we are saying it focuses on the action, how the subject performs some action. So in this case, Zikoi performs something. How she does, or how she regret, is said to be deeply. So the word deeply is an adverb of manner that describes how the subject performs something, or how the subject does something. She regrets deeply the damage caused by her son. The second example says, they waited eagerly for their semester exams results. How they waited has been said to be eagerly. Eagerly has been bolded to refer to how the subject, pronoun in this case, waited for their semester results. Monica and Rachel happily, Monica and Rachel happily agreed to Pope's bridesmaid, to be Pope's bridesmaids. So in this case, how did Monica and Rachel agree? They agreed happily, not sadly. If it was sadly, then it would be another thing. But even sadly too is an adverb. How they agreed. If they never wanted to, they might agree in such a manner. However, what has been stressed in this given example, the third sentence says, they agreed happily to be Pope's bridesmaids. And then the next example says, I can write and listen to music simultaneously. I can write and listen to music simultaneously. At the two, you can do things two at the same time. How can you write? You can write simultaneously. You can also listen to music. Do two things at the same time. You're writing and you're listening to music. So you're doing two things at the same time. Or shooting two birds, writing and listening to music at the same time. So simultaneously, as in this example, is said to be the adverb of manner that tells us how something is done. And then the next example says, we left the room quietly. We left the room quietly as we did not want to wake up the baby. We left the room quietly as we did not want to wake up the baby. The word quietly tells us how you left the room. It tells us how you left the room. How did you leave the room? We left it quietly. So that we do not, or as we do not want to wake up the baby. And then we have example sentences that greatly or vividly uses adverbs of manner. If you get any one of these words in a given illustration or in a given sentence, they are adverbs of manner. For example, one can, if you happen to see the word extravagantly, it tells us how something is done. Gently tells us how something is done. Comfortably tells us how something is done. Which means if it answers how something is done, they in themselves are adverbs of manner. It can be passionately, loudly, or lovingly. All of this tells us how something is done or how something happens, which means they also are adverbs of manner. If you get them in given sentences, just know when used therein, they are used as adverbs of manner. And then it can be superficially, and then slowly, generously, quickly, honestly, rapidly. All of this are telling us how something is done or how something occurs, how something happens, which means they in themselves are adverbs of manner. Briefly, anxiously, fairly, carefully, boldly, badly, cheerfully, brightly, or accidentally. These are words that are termed as adverbs of manner. The list goes on to include carefully, busily, calmly, clearly, deliberately, doubtfully, enormously, eventually, fiercely, foolishly, gracefully, greatly. Any one of these words, when used in example sentences, are said to be adverbs of manner. They answer the question how something happens or how something occurs. And then hardly, hungrily, joyously, jovially, madly, mysteriously, neatly, nervously, obediently. The list goes on and on with many more words that are said to be adverbs of manner. Now, in addition to this understanding, the last part herein is a classwork. You are to be examined in your understanding of adverbs of manner, whether it is true that you understood this subtopic or not. That is something that this class focuses on. You should be examined, your understanding of this subtopic should be examined to find out whether you have understood adverbs of manner, and if you did, then the focus is on words like how something is done, or how something occurs, how something happens. That is what adverbs of manner answer. They answer the question, how is something done, or how does something happen? So you would use this understanding in answering a few questions here after. The instruction to this exercise says, fill in the blank spaces by choosing the most appropriate adverbs of manner from the list given below. You will be given a list, and then you pick one of the adverbs of manner therein. You use it for filling blank spaces in given example sentences. You should pick one, and you can only pick one adverb of manner of the given 10. There are 10 questions. Pick one, use the one appropriately. You don't use the one appropriately, you will miss out on something. You use it well, you get your marks. The first question says, do you know him? And then, do you know him dash? Pick. Could it be poorly, well, repeatedly, purposefully, perfectly, accidentally, seriously, carefully, unexpectedly, or regularly? And then going on. Did he do it dash? Did he do it poorly, well, repeatedly? Pick one of these words in the bracket. The third sentence says, we met with our old school friends thus. Do you say recently? I don't even think recently has been used. Accidentally, perfectly, purposefully, seriously, carefully, repeatedly. I can't tell. Pick one of these adverbs of frequency of manner in the bracket and use it for answering the example sentences. The fourth question says, my mother asked us to take the responsibility given to us. Do you say given to us poorly, well, repeatedly, purposefully, perfectly, accidentally, seriously, carefully, unexpectedly, or regularly. You should pick one of those adverbs of manner in the bracket to answer this question. And then number 5 says, we buy fresh milk from the man across the street. We buy fresh milk from the man across the street, dash. Do you do it occasionally? Do you do it regularly? That is up to you. I'm not focusing on your possible answers. And then number 6 says, say to it that you cross the road. Do you cross the road accidentally? Do you cross the road purposefully? Do you cross it perfectly, seriously, carefully, regularly, poorly? That is a choice you should make. Number 7, I dash understand what you're going through. I dash understand what you're going through. I regularly, do you say well, poorly, repeatedly? Pick one of these adverbs of manner in the bracket and use them for answering this 7th question. 1, don't pick one and use it again. If you're going to do it, which means technically you're going to fail one question, because one is only used once. You use one maybe for 7, you don't use it anywhere else. If you use one for 8, never use that again in any of the given sentences. Number 8 says, George dash drop the keys somewhere in the supermarket. Do you say accidentally? Do you say poorly? Do you say purposefully? Do you say seriously, carefully? Whatever you think, pick one of the adverbs of manner. How does John drop the key somewhere in the supermarket? Is the question you ask yourself. And then you get the answer from those given questions. The next 2 questions says, the event was dash managed. Do you say, how was the event managed? Carefully, well, poorly, purposefully, accidentally, seriously, repeatedly? Pick one and use it for answering the 9th question. One and one alone. Don't repeat it. If you are going to repeat, marks are going to go. And the 10th question says, Ravi kept reminding Chef dash to talk to the people in charge before it is too late. How does Ravi keep reminding Chevy to talk to the people in charge before it is too late? There should be a word there in that you will pick from the given bracket. Could it be purposefully, perfectly, accidentally, regularly? Well, pick one, use it for the 10th question, and you answer. It will test your understanding of the given subtopic. But though our focus had been on adverbs of manner, I hope you had understood something herein, because adverbs of manner deals with how something happens, how something occurs. That is what adverb of manner addresses. So from these given example sentences, which in themselves are as a trial, use them and would realize whether you understood something or you didn't. That would come here after. I think the class would end here. That was the focus of this class.